Good day to you. It's Marty Wesley, and I'm very glad to have you on this journey that we are taking to search for the truth. So I hope that you will be blessed with me. Good day to you, Marty Wesley, and I invite you to carry on listening to the Torah. And so the last time we got together, we stopped here, and so I'm just going to recap this last little bit for us so that you can see exactly where we ended. The sin offering was killed and burnt during Yom Kippur, and the blood sprinkled in the area just outside the camp. The red heifer was the holiest of all Israel's offerings, and its ashes used to cleanse all who were contaminated. In other words, they were unclean and defilement of the dead. Maybe they touched a dead body or something like that. Numbers 19 verse 2 says, "And this is the ordinance." And here again in our Bibles we have the ordinance many times instead of a statute. And it makes a big difference because ordinance is connected to judgments, and the statute is a hukat. A hukat is the law that was made like the feasts. It is something that Israel did not understand, because Yahweh said to them, a hukat is like that part where he says, kill the lamb, take the blood, put it on the door frame. Now, they didn't know what it was for, but they did it because that is what Yahweh said that they must do. And this is a hukat commandment. And so, it says, this is the statute of the Torah, which Yahweh hath commanded, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring thee a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came a yoke. Now you must remember that even the rabbis went through that heifer with glasses. They had to find out if there was one little hair on that heifer that was different. They couldn't use the heifer. Red heifer is Parah, and it means a young cow. This ritual is very intimately connected to the Messiah. It had to be red, at least 3 years old, and not yoked with another animal. During the Second Temple period, the heifer was purchased with the annual collection of the half shekel, which every Israeli man gave, and it was connected with atonement. And this half shekel was called a bekel gulgalet. It was connected to Golgotha. From the ashes of this heifer, the purification water was made and kept at different locations. Those who had become unclean through touching the dead, etc., could become purified. They would be unclean for 7 days, and only a small amount of ashes was required for a great amount of water. So it is understandable that the ashes of one heifer could last for a very long time. According to the Mishnah, altogether 9 heifers have been sacrificed in the history of Israel. The ashes of the first heifer lasted until the days of Ezra. In his days, another heifer was sacrificed. The sages believed that it was possible that the 10th heifer will be sacrificed in connection with the coming of the Messiah. And so we as believers in him know that we are cleansed by his blood. All this was speaking about the blood of Yeshua. All our sins and iniquities were placed on him, and he died in our place and was resurrected by Yahweh the 3rd day after his crucifixion. We have been cleansed and saved by his blood. We have seen a photo placed on YouTube the other day by the Temple Institute, Jerusalem, of 2 perfect red young heifers. These are the first perfect ones since Yeshua was crucified. They have tried the perfect red heifer. So this is telling us that the return of HaMashiach is very near. Numbers 19:3-6 says, "And ye shall give her unto Eleazar the priest, that he may bring her forth without the camp, and one shall slay her before his face." Before whose face? Yahweh's face. "And Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger, sprinkle of her blood directly before the tabernacle of the congregation 7 times. And one shall burn the heifer in his sight, her skin and her flesh and her blood, with her dung shall he burn. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer." There was a bridge spanning the Kidron Valley and went directly to the eastern entrance of the temple. It is on this eastern side of the mountain where many of Israel are buried, waiting for the resurrection of the dead. This bridge was specially used by the priests and Levites so as not to become unclean by walking through the graves. And so the bridge kept them direct contact with death. The altar on which the red heifer was burned to ashes was in a straight line with the Holy of Holies. Eating from that altar was not permitted. It was called the Mifkad altar. It means the appointed place. Hebrews 13:10-13 says, "We have an altar whereof they have no right to eat, which serve the tabernacle. For the bodies of those beasts whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the high priest for sin are burned without the camp. Wherefore, Yeshua also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered without the gate. Let us, believers, go forth therefore unto him without the camp, bearing his reproach." Reproach is harpa, and it means rebuke and shame. Since the red heifer was burned to ashes facing the Temple Mount, this spot was the point of origin for the main purification rites of Israel. Therefore, Yeshua HaMashiach, the supreme sacrifice, represented by the red heifer, had to die right there facing the Holy of Holies. He had to sprinkle his blood before the sanctuary, but outside the camp. The Mashiach had to shed his blood before the face of his Father in the temple. Face is Panim, and it means faces, before and forefront. The Mashiach suffered outside the gate. Many believe, including myself, that Mount Olives is the place where the Mashiach, Yeshua, was crucified to fulfill the sacrifice of the red heifer. So this altar was in direct line facing the entrance to the temple. The animal was slaughtered before Yahweh's face. His presence, Panim, faces. The ashes of the red heifer was divided into 3 parts. One place was where it was kept, was on the Mount of Olives. Another place was near the court of the temple called Chel, and another part was given to the 24 groups of priests serving in the temple. According to the Mishnah, the part that was used on Mount of Olives was used to consecrate the high priest, who was to prepare the next red heifer. One part of the ashes was also given to the priests that were out in the country to cleanse the children of Israel. Now the apex of the Mount of Olives is called the place of the skull. Let's go back to Numbers 19:16-19. Says, "And whosoever touches one that is slain with a sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. And for an unclean person they shall take off the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. And the clean person shall take hyssop and dip it in the water, sprinkle upon the tent and upon all the vessels and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone, or one slain, or one dead, or a grave. The clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and on the 7th day shall he purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at even. In other words, in the evening. John 2:1-10 says this, and the 3rd day there was a marriage in Kanah. In the Hebrew, Kanah is jealous. So we see that this is connected to the jealous God of Israel. And it so happens that this was a wedding in Galilee, and the mother of Yeshua was there as well. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Yeshua says unto him, they have no more wine. And Yeshua said unto her, woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. So his mother saith unto the servants, whatsoever he says unto you, do it. And there was set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. So that shows us that this was a priest's house. Yeshua says unto them, fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he saith unto them, draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. And when the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and saith unto him, every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. And you see, this is why I thought, let me do this, the jealous God, with this, the Torah, to show you that it was after Yeshua's death, when there was no more temple, when the red heifers also stopped growing red hair. Everything showed forth that Yeshua was going to be the one that was going to clean the nation of Israel from all sin and from all uncleanness. Now we can see this in Numbers 5:11-18. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, if any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him, and a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close, and she be defiled, and there be no witness against her, neither she be taken with the manner. Verse 14 says, and the spirit of jealousy will come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled, then shall the man bring his wife unto the priest, and he shall bring her offering for her, the 10th part of an ephah of barley meal. He shall pour no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is an offering of jealousy, an offering of memorial bringing iniquity to remembrance. And the priest shall bring her near and set her before Yahweh. And the priest shall take holy water in an earthen vessel, and of the dust that is on the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall take and put it into the water. Now dust from the floor speaks of vileness, a state of condemnation. And the priest shall set the woman before Yahweh and uncover the woman's head, and put the offering of memorial in her hands, which is the jealousy offering. And the priest shall have in his hand the bitter water that causes the curse. Head uncovered. It means she is stripped and deprived of her husband's protection. Wow, isn't that wonderful? To cover her head was a sign of submission to her husband. The bitter water, according to Jewish sages, the priest wrote the curse on a scroll of parchment. He would then sponge the letters from the parchment with vinegar water, letting the vinegar water run into the earthen vessel, which the woman had to drink. Then the clay vessel was broken. Numbers 5:19 to 27 says, And the priest shall charge her by an oath, and say unto the woman, If no man have laid with thee, and if thou hast not gone aside to uncleanness with another instead of thy husband, be thou free from this bitter water that causes the curse. But if thou hast gone aside to another instead of thy husband, and if thou be defiled, and some man have laid with thee beside thine husband, then the priest shall charge the woman with an oath of cursing, and the priest shall say unto the woman, Yahweh make thee a curse and an oath among thy people. And when Yahweh doth make thy thigh to rot, and thy belly to swell, and this water that causes the curse shall go into thy bowels, and to make thy belly to swell, and thy thigh to rot. Now, we know that the thigh is called Yarech, and it means loins, thigh, and generative parts. And so this woman shall say, Amen, Amen. And we know that the double Amen is a prophecy. And the priest shall write these curses in a book, and he shall blot them out with the bitter or the vinegar water, and he shall cause the woman to drink the bitter water that causes the curse, and the water that causes the curse shall enter into her and become bitter. Then the priest shall take the jealousy offering out of the woman's hand, and shall wave the offering before Yahweh, and offer it upon the altar. And the priest shall take an handful of the offering, even the memorial thereof, and burn it upon the altar, and afterward shall cause the woman to drink the water. And when he hath made her to drink the water, then it shall come to pass that if she be defiled, and have done trespass against her husband, that water that causes the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thighs shall rot, and the woman shall be a curse among her people. Thigh is the nearest to the mentioning of the generative parts of man or woman in the Bible. They use another term, he will reveal her nakedness, etc. Taking an oath, he will place his hand underneath a man's thigh, because it says, out of Jacob's loins came forth the 12 tribes of Israel. So when you look at the menorah, the upright shaft is called Yarech, loins, side, thigh, generative parts. Out of Yeshua's side came Israel and all believers in him. As in Adam, Eve was taken out of him. We were chosen in him before the foundation of the world to be a co-ruler with him. So where we see in the New Covenant scriptures, it says that we as believers were chosen in him before the foundation of the world. Why is that? Because we came from Abraham's seed. Numbers 5:28-31 says, and if the woman be not defiled, but be clean, then she shall be free, and shall conceive seed. This is the Torah of jealousies. When a wife goeth aside to another instead of her husband, and is defiled, or when the spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he be jealous over his wife, and shall set the woman before Yahweh, and the priest shall execute upon her all of this particular law. Then shall the man be guiltless from iniquity, and this woman shall bear her iniquity. Matthew 26:26-32 says, and as they were eating, Yeshua took bread and blessed it, and brake it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup, and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament. We call it the renewed covenant, which he shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung an hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. Then said Yeshua unto them, all ye shall be offended because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. But after I am risen again, I will go before you into Galilee. Matthew 26:28 says, for this is my blood of the New Testament, or new renewed covenant, which he shed for many for the remission of sins. Let's read it in Hebrew. It says, Ze hu dami dam havarit achadasha. This is my blood of the renewed blood covenant. So we as believers in Yeshua were taught that we are now in the New Testament, a completely new dispensation. We speak about New and Old Testaments. Let's look at the Greek of the word New Testament. In Greek, it's diatheke, a contract, a divisory will, covenant, testament. As we can see that the English translators use testament instead of renewed blood covenant. And so what is in testament, it is also a divisory will. Strong's number 2319 gives the new in Hebrew, it's chadash, to rebuild, to make fresh, renew. And covenant in Strong's 1285 is brit, a cutting, a compact, confederacy, league, covenant. So, a blood covenant is a berit, a covenant that was cut. Matthew 28:38 verse 41 says, then saith he unto them, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry ye here, and watch with me. And he went a little further, and fell on his face, and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as thou wilt. And he cometh unto the disciples, and finds them asleep. And he says to Peter, what, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. It was just after this when Judas led the chief priests and the soldiers to the place where Yeshua and his disciples were together to arrest Yeshua. Which cup was this? What did Yahweh say to Israel? Exodus 25 says, "Thou shalt not bow down thyself to idols, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh Elohecha, am a jealous Elohim." Joshua 24:19-20 says, "And Joshua said unto the people, You cannot serve Yahweh, for he is an holy Elohim. He is a jealous God, Kanah. He will not forgive your transgressions nor your sin. If you forsake Yahweh and serve strange gods, then he will turn and do you hurt and consume you after that he hath done you good." And his people said unto Joshua, "No, but we will serve Yahweh." And Joshua said unto the people, "Ye are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen you Yahweh to serve him." And they said, "We are witnesses. Now therefore put away," says he, "the strange gods which are among you, and incline your heart unto Yahweh Elohim of Israel." And the people said unto Joshua, "Yahweh Elohim will we serve, and his voice will we obey." And so Leviticus 26:15-20 says, "And if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you will not do all my commandments, but that you break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and a burning ague that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart, and you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemy shall eat it, and I will set my face against you. And you shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and ye shall flee when none pursues you. And if you will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins. And I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron, and your earth as brass, and your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land shall not yield her increase, neither shall the trees of the land yield her fruit." Wow. Jeremiah 7:23-24 says, "But this thing commanded I them, saying, Obey my voice, and I will be your Elohim, and you shall be my people, and walk ye in all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well unto you. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels and the imagination of their own evil heart, and went backward and not forward." When Israel went into idolatry, Yahweh had to perform his word. Ezekiel 8 to Ezekiel 11:13-20. We see in the temple of Yahweh, in one of the chambers beneath his altar, some of the ancients with their backs towards Yahweh's altar were worshipping the sun. In another chamber the women were weeping for the god Tammuz, and Judah was putting the branch of Tammuz to their noses. Exodus 34:14 says, "For thou shalt worship no other god, for Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous Elohim." Jealous, he is Kanah. Provoke to jealousy, purchase to redeem. Now really look at these last 2 words, to purchase and to redeem. Here it speaks about Yahweh as a jealous husband who is also merciful. Just like Hosea, who went to the slave market to buy his harlot wife back to himself in the barley season, Pesach season. Here we have a picture of what Yeshua was about to do. Now if you look at Hosea 1, you see that Yahweh said to Hosea, "Go and marry a harlot." I want Israel to see what they look like in my eyes. John 19:12-42 says, and from thenceforth Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, if thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whosoever maketh himself a king speaks against Caesar. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Yeshua forth and sat down in the judgment seat in a place that is called the pavement, but in the Hebrew it's Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he saith unto the Jews, behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, and crucify him. Pilate says unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. I believe it was not the nation that crucified him. It was the priesthood that was so decayed at that time with the Sanhedrin that some of the leaders of Israel, they are the ones that said, crucify him. Crucify him. Then delivered he him therefore unto them to be crucified. And they took Yeshua, who's they? The priesthood, and led him away, and he bearing his cross went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him and 2 others with him on either side one, and Yeshua in the midst. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was, Yeshua of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Now when we read it in Hebrew, it's Yeshua HaNotzri, or Melech HaYehudim. And many Jews read this title, for the place where Yeshua was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. There is an acrostic of the first letters spelling. If you take the first letters of all the words that is there in the Hebrew, you'll find it's the Yud-Hey, Vav-Hey. The last letters spell Yahweh. Then said the chief priests of the Jews to Pilate, write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am King of the Jews. And Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Yeshua, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. And they said therefore among themselves, let us not rend it, but cast lots for it, whose it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which says, they parted my raiment among them, and for my vesture they did cast lots. These things therefore the soldiers did. Psalm 22:17-18 says, speaking about Yeshua, I may tell all my bones, they look and stare upon me. Verse 18 says, they part my garments among them, and cast lots upon my vesture. John 19:25-37 says, now there stood by the cross of Yeshua his mother, and his mother's sister Miriam, the wife of Cleopas, and Miriam of Magdala. And when Yeshua therefore saw his mother, and the disciple standing by whom he loved, he says unto his mother, woman, behold thy son. Then saith he to the disciple, behold thy mother. And from that hour that disciple took her unto his own home. And after this, Yeshua, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, And they filled a sponge with vinegar and put it upon hyssop and put it to his mouth. And when Yeshua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." Shalem. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost, which is the spirit. Shalem, it is finished, complete, perfect. As if Israel had never sinned. Speaking about the nation of Israel as his wife. When Yeshua drank the cup of jealousy on behalf of Yahweh, he knew what would happen to him, because it was written in Numbers 5 verse 27. And when he have made her to drink the water, then it shall come to pass that if she be defiled and have done trespass against her husband, that the water that causes the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, and her belly shall swell, and her thigh shall rot, and the woman shall be a curse among her people. What is Gomer the harlot's name? Completion. And Greek finished his tetelestai, paid in full. He took all her curse upon himself. He took a death sentence upon himself, his life for her life, so that she may live as if she had never sinned. Hallelujah. Yeshua was offered vinegar during the crucifixion, and he refused it, however. At the point of death and ritual defilement through uncleanness, he accepted it. This was the last cup that he drank, the cup of jealousy. Oh my goodness. Did he break his vow? Both the vinegar and the death severed the vow. Yeshua's acceptance of the vinegar symbolized his acceptance of the last curse of Numbers 5:27 and death. And Yeshua's resurrection was his purification from death. Luke 24:50-51 says, "And he led them out as far as to Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and he blessed them. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he was parted from them and carried up into heaven. And he lifted up his hands and blessed them," the priestly blessing. He had just become the everlasting high priest, the Melchizedek of Psalm 110. And when you lift up your hands to bless, you declare yourself as priest. But you may say, what about his scars? The sages prohibit a priest to minister with any scars, etc. The scars of Mashiach are a testimony to the glory of Yahweh. They remind us that this was not the first time that he lifted his hands to bless. He had them lifted up in an everlasting blessing when he was nailed to the cross. It was Elohim in Yeshua, reconciling the world to himself. 2 Corinthians 5:17-19. Therefore, if any man be in Yeshua HaMashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new, and all things are of Elohim, who hath reconciled us to himself by Yeshua HaMashiach, and had given to us the ministry of reconciliation, to wit that Elohim was in HaMashiach, reconciling the world unto himself, not imputing their trespasses unto them, and hath committed unto us the word of reconciliation. Reconcile in the Greek, katalasso, to reconcile. Hebrew is kafar, to cover, to make atonement, pardon, and to purge away. So we are going to end here, and we will continue at the next time when we meet I'll ask you to meditate on this word so that you may know what the word is actually saying to us. Think about it. I'll speak to you again next time. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you. Yahweh turn his countenance upon you, and he gives you peace. Shalom. Thank you for joining me today on today's journey. I hope you will join me again next time. So, shalom for today until I see you again.